go ahead and get started then this evening. My name's Melissa Moore. I'm the Cultural Arts Manager with the City of Hillsborough's Parks and Recreation Department. And we have two other staff here to help answer questions tonight about our Community Arts and Culture Grant Program. We are going to do a short introduction and then we will move on to questions that you have. So Lorena, would you introduce yourself and your role with grants?
Yeah, so I'm Lorena Ortiz. I'm the program administrative coordinator for the Walters, and I assist with grants. So if there's any questions in regards to submitting applications or just general questions, you can reach out to me and welcome.
Hi, I'm Katrina Hill, and I'm the Performance and Event Supervisor for the Walters. So I'm a good contact if you have specific questions about applying for a performance grant.
All right, and I'm going to do a short overview of all of the different grants we have available. We have 4 grants that are part of our Community Arts and Culture Grants program, and those are a core operating support grant that is specifically limited to organizations that are a 501c3 nonprofit that are based in Hillsborough and that are primarily focused on cultural arts. So in our grant guidelines, we've defined what we mean by cultural arts and heritage. And that includes things like theater, music, dance, visual arts, literary arts, storytelling, and historical preservation. So the core support grants are limited to those groups. Then we have project grants, and those are much more open as to who can apply for a project grant. You don't have to be a nonprofit. You don't even have to have an organization to apply for a project grant. We have 2 levels or tiers of project grants. So if you don't have a nonprofit, a 501c3 or C4, you can apply for up to $3,000 to do a cultural arts project in Hillsborough. If you do have your nonprofit status, you can apply for up to $6,000 to do a project. And within project grants, there are 2 different types of projects. One is for a public program or event. That is things like an exhibit or a class or a performance. And then there's also capacity building projects. Those can be things like hiring a consultant to do a strategic plan, redo your website, work on organization of props, lots of things that might support your organization but not necessarily be public facing. Then we also have a micro grant. Micro grants are really a smaller project grant. So if you only need up to $1,000, the micro grant application is a little simplified. And I would recommend going that way. You don't need to be a nonprofit to apply for that. And then our final grant is the Performance Series grant that Katrina mentioned. And with that, you can apply to actually be in our performance series. You receive ticketing and marketing support, AV support, rehearsal in the space once, and then you can receive ticket proceeds, either 100% of the proceeds if you're a Hillsborough nonprofit or 80% if you are not a Hillsborough nonprofit. So those are our 4 grant programs we're talking about tonight. I do want to just briefly mention there is also within cultural arts our public art program, and currently there is a mural idea application that is open, and it closes this Sunday, the 11th at midnight. So if you were joining us hoping to talk more about murals, we're going to want to connect you with Carl LeClaire, the public arts supervisor. So let's see. Let me try and quickly share my screen. And okay. Is it sharing it yet? There we go. Can you see the website? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Greg. I just wanted to show you to make sure you can find all of our grant information online, because our guidelines, our applications, and scoring criteria are all on the City of Hillsboro's website. I don't memorize the way to get to this web page. When I'm looking for it, I just type into Google or whatever browser you're using, Hillsboro Art Grants, and you'll be able to come right to this page from that. So Community Arts and Culture Grants. Let's see, as I scroll down the page, you've got a short summary of our timelines. And then you can get into the individual grants. So for core support grants, if you click on this, then you can see we have the guidelines available in English or Spanish. We have the review criteria, which all of our review criteria was revised this year. And we'll take a look at that maybe in a few minutes. And then our grant applications, you fill out directly online here. So there is a little bit more summary information, and all of the grants are available there, as well as our report forms. The review criteria, I'm going to click into this top one in English. This was for the core operating support grants. And what I want to show you here is that we are sharing exactly what our grant panelists are looking at when they are scoring your grants. So when you're answering the questions on that application, our panelists are going to review your answers, and they're going to look at this community impact and this top bullet point, mission goals and programs that will contribute to the overall cultural climate of Hillsboro, 10 points, and it says Q1. That means that we are expecting them to be able to score this based on your answer to narrative question number 1 in your grant. So when you're filling out your application, you can compare the questions in the application directly to the criteria and see what they are looking for. And you can also see the relative weight of the criteria. So if you're worried you can't answer a question well, they're not all worth the same amount. Some are 5 points, some are 10. So you can go through and take a look at that. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment now.
Real quick, I'm just going to jump in and say I put the friendly URL to the grants page in the chat. So if anyone wants to copy that, that's there for you.
Thank you, Katrina. And before we go any further, I just want to stop and see if anyone has any question at this point. Feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute and ask if you would like. Brianna or Brenna?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's anywhere where we can see a list of the materials that are required for the application without actually going through the application. I noticed that you have to fill out the first page before you can see the second page, and there's like 8 pages. So I just wanted to be able to gather all my materials ahead of time.
That is a great question. And I don't believe there's currently on the website a spot to see that, but I can see how that would be helpful. What we can try and do is put together just a Word document of the application, a PDF of it, and then ask our web team to upload those so that people can see what questions are going to be asked.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so that's not there now. We will make the request of the web team to add those.
And then one other thing is, you mentioned that you don't have to be part of an organization to apply for the project grants, but on the application, the first question is organization and it is required. So you just put none or,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Yeah, you can just write none, or you can do NA or N-A for not applicable.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine as an answer. We are requiring that the questions get filled out, because if we don't, people will skip additional questions that we really need answers to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Greg?
There we go.
There you go.
Melissa, I think I mentioned this once to you last year, but since you mentioned talking to the web team, it would be really helpful to have a way to download the application once we're done with it, or so that we can get a copy once it's filled out, especially when it comes time to do our report. Um, Hopefully to get a grant, to have like a record of what you submitted. So I just wanted to kind of remind you that's a request that I think if that hasn't been resolved, would that be nice.
Thank you for bringing that back up, Greg, and I'm going to throw that to Lorena.
Actually, that's one of the changes that we made this year. So now when you submit your application, you'll have the opportunity to download a copy of your application.
So, great, thank you.
Mhm.
So other questions? Okay, I'm going to give you a chance to think about other questions for a moment and go to Lorena, because I think she had a few other tips to share about submitting grants.
Thank you, Melissa. So I think one of the number one tips that I want to let everyone know is normally, so some of these applications are fairly long. They could be, pages, and just know that you're able to save your progress. Don't feel like if you are in the middle of your application, you won't be able to get back into it. We actually encouraged you to only submit or use one application. If for any reason, if at any point you started an application and you're unable to go back in, please either call me or email me, because I can send you that same link and make sure that it is actually available for you to continue on to your application so that you don't have to duplicate another one. So that's been like the number one thing that we noticed last year. Let's see. The other thing, like Melissa mentioned, all of the fields are required, and there might be some information that may not apply to you. Just go ahead and just use NA if something doesn't apply to you. The other thing that I want to let folks know is at the end of the application, you'll have an opportunity to upload all of your supporting documents. Like if you have board members, you can upload that information or any additional information that you feel or you want to share with the grant panel. But that will be at the end of your application. So just know that that's there. Um, let's see. Oh, the other thing, I've been getting questions about applications. Since everything is submitted electronically, you do not need to email it to me. So just go ahead and submit it, and the system will automatically let me know that your application was submitted, and you should actually get a confirmation stating that we received your application. Just save it for your records. Okay. Let me see. I think those are my major tips that I could share with you at the moment. Um, oh, one last thing. I really want to encourage folks to complete their application before the revise and review deadline because that's a really good opportunity for you to get feedback. Someone from our staff will actually review your application, and if there's any information that we think you might want to consider adjusting, that would be a good opportunity for you to get that information or that feedback from our staff. So I would really like to encourage you to definitely submit your applications before the revise and review deadline.
Thank you for mentioning that, Lorena. It is a great opportunity to have us review things beforehand, and we can help you know if something is an ineligible expense or if you're just not eligible for that grant, and so you should be looking at a different form. Before we talk more about that, I want to go to Brenna. I see your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, when is that review deadline? Because I think I saw two different places where there were two different dates listed for that.
So,
Oh,
go ahead, Katrina.
I was just going to say, I just looked them up. So for the performance grant, it's January 23rd. And for the project core and micro grants, it's February 2nd. We have two different timelines. Performance grants we have to have done and do earlier since we're trying to get ready for our next season. So that's why everything is due earlier for the performance grants.
Thank you.
And for that revise and review opportunity, if you haven't taken part in that before, what happens is when you submit the grant, Lorena will get it to the appropriate staff member to review. And then we'll reach out to you once we've reviewed it and schedule a time for a phone call, an online meeting, an in-person meeting if that works better for you. Something to be able to touch base and provide you with feedback. But we will make sure and do that where we're leaving you enough time to still make any revisions that you need. So once you submit, you'll be waiting for just a little bit while we go through that process, but we'll reach out and get you feedback in time for you to make revisions and then submit your grant again. Other questions?
I have a
Sudesh?
question. Oh, sorry, I didn't raise
Oh,
my
I'm
hand.
sorry. One moment, Sean.
Thank you.
Oh, my name is Sudeshna. So, can you hear me good?
You're a little quiet.
My name is Sudeshna, and my question is about the micro grants. What kind of projects are those micro grants eligible for?
I'm turning up my volume because I still thought you were a little quiet on my end. And I know you were asking about the micro grants.
Yes.
And specifically, what types of projects could be funded by that? Was that it?
Yes. Sorry, I had my dental surgery and I'm numb.
No,
Sorry.
no problem. No problem. They can be for a wide range of projects. It has to be for a cultural arts or heritage project in Hillsborough. It has to be taking place in Hillsborough. It could be for a performance, a festival, an exhibit. It could be for a writing class. It could be a storytelling event. Katrina or Lorena, you want to help me brainstorm other things that those kind of things are for?
I understood. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right. Yes. All right. And then let's see, Sean, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question, and then I just kind of have a comment and more so a curiosity. You know, it's 2026 right now, and people are using ChatGPT for everything. And my comment is like, I hope, everyone can, try and avoid using ChatGPT in their submittals and responses as fellow artists. So I just wanted to say that out loud. But then I have a question for the performance series grant, kind of versus the project grant. You had mentioned that a project grant could be used for a performance. What are the distinguishing differences between those two?
Katrina, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so the performance grants are specifically for you to become a part of the performance series at the Walters. So that performance would take place as part of our series, and we would provide, a wide range of support for that performance. Now, if you were going to do a performance somewhere else in Hillsborough, and you needed some funding to help support that, that's where the project grant would come in.
Thank you. And a follow-up question. What do you look for in a successful grant application for the performance series grant?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things that I think is really important for those grant applications, although I would say any grant application, is really kind of being, try and put the panelists in the audience shoes so that they can figure out what they're going to experience in that performance, so that so they can really kind of get an idea of what you're going for, and what the audience would. So really kind of thinking of the descriptions and all the details. I would say that there's an expectation that what you put in the application is what that performance is going to look like when it's on the stage. So just make sure if there's any details like special guests or anything that's not confirmed, just don't put those in there, or say these things need to be confirmed, because you don't want to set up an expectation and then not meet it. So I think that's really the panelists really look for a broad range of performances, so I can't really give you oh, this genre does better or anything like that. They want to bring really diverse performances to the stage. So so I think it's all in just kind of like how you sell the performance to them in that description.
And if
Thank you.
if I can add something to that, for the performance grant, at the end of the application, there's an opportunity for you to submit videos. I would really encourage you to submit videos that, that directly includes community, out in the community, if that's what you're planning to do. So that's a very good visual for the grant panel.
And if it's something like brand new and you haven't performed it yet, even if you could just video a rehearsal, just so they can actually listen to it and see you performing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a couple more hands up now. So I think Natalia, you were next.
Yes, hi. If the project falls, is it possible to apply for two grants, micro grant and project grant, or we are limited to one application only?
That's such a great question. It is possible to apply for two grants sometimes, but not a micro grant and a project grant usually. You can apply for a core operating support grant and a project grant and a performance series grant, but usually you can only apply for one project grant or micro grant, one or the other, because they're essentially both projects. The reason I'm saying usually is this year, 2026, is the city of Hillsborough's 150th birthday or anniversary. And so that's a pretty substantial milestone for the city of Hillsborough. And so we are allowing applications for one additional project if you are doing a project that is going to in some way celebrate that 150th anniversary. So if, for instance, you were planning an exhibit of the people of Hillsborough, I'm just making that up, and it would specifically call out that you're doing this to celebrate the 150th anniversary, you could apply for a grant for that, plus a grant for a completely different project that you wanted to do both of those, and they could both be funded. We didn't want to pull our support away from other projects during this anniversary, but we did want to encourage anyone who had an idea they wanted to celebrate. So that's the only time that you can do 2 project grants or a project and a micro grant.
Thank you.
Yeah. Greg, I see you have a question.
Yeah, this is maybe it's pretty much just for me. And regarding the amounts, the limits that you can apply for a court support grant. And so it's 15% of your last year budget, I believe, up to $10,000. I think that's what it said on the website just now. And for us specifically, a big part of our revenue is essentially the art walk dollars that we're paying to musicians and then we're getting reimbursed by the city. So it's a little bit of a pass through, and I kind of don't know if I should be including that in revenue or not. And last year I did, and the grant that we got, which we are so thankful for, by the way, and we tell everybody how thankful we are for it, was adjusted down a bit from what I, requested, which is totally fine. But mostly I just didn't know if there was a bit of different thinking as far as, a bucket of revenue that comes from the city of Hillsborough versus revenue from other places.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Greg. And I'm just want to repeat part of that back for everyone. So Greg was asking about the limits for core operating support grants, and for core operating support, the limit is 15%, the maximum of 15% of your previous year's operating revenue, or a maximum of $10,000. So if you're a larger organization and 15% would be more than 10,000, 10,000 is the most we could possibly do. But we do frequently, most of the time, only provide partial funding for many of our core operating support grants. The amount that's requested far exceeds the funds available. And so what happened last year for you, Greg, was just that we wanted to be able to award some funds to more grants, and we reduced the amount we gave to each of them so that we could do some to more. But so it wasn't because you had received funding from Hillsborough as part of your revenue. There's no problem there.
Okay, that's something we need to know, because
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like.
No, you're square. That was all good.
Thank you.
More questions? Brenna?
So I have a question. So I'm just an individual artist, and my idea is related to like a visual arts exhibition that would involve a lot of community engagement. And I'm completely new to this, so I'm sorry if this is a silly question, but I'm just wondering if you have any guidance about how a person like puts a value on their time for that. Like, how do you decide how much money to ask for a project like that just involves a lot of time and facilitating?
Well, that's a great question, Brenna. If you're including your time as an expense to the project, you have to come up with some valuation of it. And so I know that we have another guest here who has had to do that himself. Luis, would you want to share how you did that?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, yes. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Hello, nice to meet you. Well, technically, I'm in charge of the Hispanic Heritage every year. You can include in, your time and the time in case you have assistance, materials, what else? Everything like maybe cost you can try to justify. So you have to try to relate it, with the exhibition. I don't know exactly what exhibition you have in your mind, but it's more or less in that way.
Luis, can
Uh-huh.
you share, how did you decide how to put the hourly value of your time? How did you set your hourly rate?
I don't remember exactly.
Oh.
I have to be sincere. I don't remember now.
Okay.
But the thing is, we find because obviously in the art world, we put in so much time on this. So you have to think in more or less, putting something normally. But because if you put in totally like you work, it's impossible pay it. So for that reason, it's like I'm super grateful always because this is great help. And always we working, and with vocation, it's hard work. So you have to relate different things and trying to justify in the grant. But the time is like for example, I'm the curator of the exhibition, so we put in the time like we have to cover all the show. We have a reception in our case, so we have to add in the hours. Sometimes we have to working with including the assistants and with including the day before. In our case, like is when we are receiving all the artwork for the storage. So that is part of just for getting one idea about it.
All right. Thank you, Luis.
Okay.
Brenna, it is always tough to decide if you don't have a set rate that you're already charging for an hourly rate for your time. But I would encourage you to count out how many hours and then start at a space of looking at what is $20 an hour, what is $25 an hour, and see if you think it's going to feel like a reasonable amount.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your guidance and your advice, Luis. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Other questions? Okay, Cliff.
Yes. Could you speak more to the performance series grant? What you're looking for there? How long would a performance be? Would it be a solo performance or with other folks? Just in general, what's going on with the performance series grant?
Yeah. So the performances can be a variety. So it could be a solo, duo, group. Again, we're looking for a variety of styles of performances, variety of genres. Look at cultural performances, things like that. So again, there's not a lot of limitations on what that performance actually looks like on the stage. As far as the length of the performance, we really do look at trying to keep that flexible. So we have some options in the application where, let's say you just want to do a 160-minute set performance. That's fine. You can also do a longer performance with an intermission. And then you also have the option to kind of propose a different setup. So the 160-minute and two 45 to 50-minute with a intermission are the two options we suggest. And that's typically how things we do at our performance series. But if you have another idea, you can propose that in your application.
I know Andy Joyce. She's been a recipient of the performance grant. So
I couldn't quite hear everything you were saying. Could
Oh,
you
I'm
repeat?
just saying, Cliff is a regular at our open mic, and as is Andy Joyce and Rhythm and Autism. And so that show got a performance series grant. So if Cliff can talk to her exactly
Okay, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
about
I
some
understand.
of the experience.
Understand, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other
Okay.
questions? I
Okay,
mean,
thank you very much. I think,
okay.
no, I think I can follow up with Greg and find out more about that too, because they did that already. Okay, thank you.
And there will be spots on the application for you to describe like the genre, the number of performers, any kind of audio visual requirements that you might need. We have a full, sound system and lighting. We'll have a sound tech that would be supporting your show. So that's not really a problem, but it helps us to kind of just have an idea in case there's something special that we would just need to discuss with you before the show. Yeah.
One thing that I do want to mention related to the performance series grants, we really strengthened the language and the guidelines this year for the performance series grant about the importance of grant recipients attending the orientation meeting. It is a requirement now. So if you receive the grant, if you are awarded that grant, we have 2 dates already set up for an orientation meeting. You can select either date, but you have to send either yourself or someone else to that meeting, or you will forfeit the grant. So make sure when you're looking through the guidelines that you note those dates, because you need to make sure that you or someone representing you would be able to attend at least one of those dates. Lane, you have your hand up?
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay, great. Perfect. I have a couple of questions. One of them, I'm looking through the scoring criteria, and I suppose for context, I'm a volunteer with Toraro Film Festival, and there's an artist residency component to that film festival where typically the artists are given some kind of stipend. And I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if these grants allow for that kind of like giving from the budget. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
actually, Lane, that is something that we see in a lot of our grants. An artist stipend, paying artists for their time, whether it is doing graphic design work or speaking as an honorarium, that's absolutely an allowable expense.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question that I had is kind of related to the budget question from earlier. Actually, maybe I ended up having 3 questions. Um, in terms of like the balance of the budget with paying for like administrative, like there's a lot of coordination effort that needs to happen for the main staff member. And
Mhm.
I don't know if there's like an expectation, I'm looking at cost-effective budget with a reasonable grant amount requested. If if there's like an expectation for like what percentage of the grant should be going to a staff member, if it matters, if it's more about just context of seeing that it can actually be done.
Um, well, that's a great question. I feel like there's actually 2 different strains to that are important. One is the part about really how much staff time can you charge to the grant. And in our project grants and the micro grant, you can include staff time as an expense. That is allowed. Um, I do feel like it might be a little less competitive as a grant if you are charging all of your staff time for the project to our grant and there's no other expenses. So it's really just asking us to pay for the staff. In some ways, that feels more like a core operating expense then. So if the staff expense is a part of the larger project, if you are taking on part of the paying for that staff expense and we are just being asked for a part of it, that might be more competitive. But there's not a set percentage.
Yeah,
Um,
that answered my question though. That's perfect.
okay,
Yeah, I'm passing all this information along to the board, so
great.
that's excellent.
There's
Okay, then
one other thing you said though, Lane, I want to just mention for
oh
others as
yes,
well. The question about or the in the grant it says that it should be a reasonable and appropriate budget. And the reason that we're using that kind of language is we have actually occasionally seen a grant come in that has undercut itself by having such a low amount for a project, where people on the panel know the cost of things. And if you're not asking for enough money to do something, the panelists think they're not going to be able to accomplish this project, or they're not going to accomplish it in a way that looks good. And so, while we're not wanting you to inflate costs, we want to make sure that you're asking for enough money to actually accomplish the thing you're talking about. So that's really where that reasonable is coming in. It's not actually asking you to trim costs. It's making sure that you're asking for the amount that's really needed for the project. So Lane,
perfect.
one more question?
I do. Just one more. I noticed in the scoring criteria again for the project grant that there's several points awarded to increasing opportunities for small and emerging organizations.
Mhm.
Is that about partnering with other organizations, or is that also just about the applicant as a small and emerging organization?
That's an astute question, and it can be either one. This past year, when the Arts Council was meeting and discussing changes they wanted to make in our grants program, one thing they said that they were interested in doing was in nurturing small and emerging organizations. And so we tried to add a few points to the scoring criteria about that. But there's some flexibility. So you could receive points if you are from a small and emerging organization for that. But you could also be a larger organization who is going to partner or give a great opportunity to a small organization. Um, and you could also receive points for it that way.
That's great. That answered my question. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Did any of those questions bring up an idea or a question from anyone else? Brenna.
Yeah, I've thought of another question. So earlier you were mentioning about like sometimes you'll choose to award a lesser amount than what was asked for. In those cases, like if it's a project, is there some back and forth there about like, well, if I'm getting less money, then this is how I would need to reduce the scope, or how does that work?
Fantastic question. So for our core operating support grants, we routinely reduce the amount of what someone has asked for because it's not money that's tied to a specific project, so we feel like there's more flexibility. For our project grants, we're more hesitant to reduce the amount, but we have, beginning just last year, added a question to the application that asks you, if you receive less than the full amount, will you still be able to do the project? And if you say no, the panelists will know they have to decide yes or no on your project. If you say yes, they'll be thinking about what is she going to need to change in this project if we give her a little less. And the truth is, I think that the conversation about potentially giving a reduced amount to someone is usually because there's a grant on the cusp and not getting funded that they would like to be able to extend some dollars to. And so we are looking at the ones a little above the line going, could we shave a little bit off these to be able to spread that money further? So it's not routine that most of our project grants end up being fully funded,
Okay.
but it is possible that you could be partially funded, and you'll
So,
be asked on the application whether or not you could proceed.
and so indicating a yes on that, like I could proceed, but does that still leave the door open to be like, I can proceed, but with a reduced scope?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Other questions? One thing I'll mention about the scoring criteria, Lane asked a couple of good questions after reviewing that, was if you read through the scoring criteria, you'll notice some criteria that maybe feels almost contradictory, like you couldn't score well on this question if you'd scored well on this one. And that is in the area of community impact. We know that cultural arts grants can have incredible impacts in our community. And sometimes that impact is because many people will see your performance or your exhibit. So you can have a broad impact on a lot of people. Sometimes, though, you might have an incredible impact in our community because you have a life-changing impact on just a few people. So, in order to be able to weigh that into the scoring criteria, we have one criteria that is about the number of people that will be impacted, and we have another criteria about the depth of impact. So don't worry if you're reading that thinking, that you can only do one of those two things. Most grants really lean one way or the other. You're either doing a performance at the farmer's market that 500 or 1,000 people are going to see, or you're going to teach 8 kids how to do something that's going to change their life. So it's okay if you're having one of those impacts and not the other one. Occasionally a project does both, but don't feel like you have to be able to do every single thing. We have about 10 minutes left. Any other questions? Lorena, did you have any final tips you wanted to share?
Not final tips, but I do want to remind everyone of some important dates. So, like we mentioned, performing grants, the review and revision deadline is January 23rd. For all other grants is February 2nd. The performance grant application deadline closes February 12th. And then all the other grants close February 23rd by 5 p.m. And then the last important date is the grant award notifications. Those will go out on May 1st. So whether you receive one or not, you'll get a notification on May 1st.
You'll get an earlier notification for the performance series, though.
Yes.
Okay, Katrina, did you have any final tips or anything you want to share?
No, nothing specific other than to reiterate the encouragement to submit your application for the revised review. It's especially helpful if this is your first time applying for a grant because, it's a good opportunity to really get that feedback and before your application is submitted in its final version. So,
Brenna, it looks like you have a question.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask lastly, who's the best person to contact if we have further questions about the project grants?
You can always contact Lorena, and then she will direct questions as appropriate, because if you're talking about submission issues and application issues, she's really your best source. And then she'll direct questions to me or to Katrina if there's other follow-up needed.
Thank you.
And the last thing I would like to share, well, I guess two bits, is if you have not written a grant before or don't have a lot of experience, one of my favorite grant writing tips is to ask a friend to review your grant for you, somebody who doesn't already know very much about the project. Because when they are reading what you've written, they'll be able to let you know if something doesn't make sense or if there's not quite enough explanation. So we're not looking for things to be perfectly written. You don't have to use ChatGPT, but we do want you to tell us what your project is, what you're doing. So just rely on your network of friends. Could be a neighbor, somebody you work with, anybody. It doesn't have to be somebody who knows about the work you're doing. And then the final thing I would say is thank you. Thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing in the community. The reason that we have this grant program is because we can't provide all of the wonderful things that you do. And so we are trying to provide funding to allow you to do those things. So thank you for the work that you're already doing. We hope that we're going to be able to work with you on this further and support the good work you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And if you have additional questions, reach out to Lorena and she will find you some